Welcome to IADS Retail Park, where the choices retailers make today determine whether they evolve or go extinct tomorrow. I'm your host, Maya, and in this episode, we're tackling one of the most contentious topics in retail right now: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not the sanitized version you see in annual reports, but the messy, complicated reality that's playing out in boardrooms, on shop floors, and in communities across the United States. From sweeping commitments in 2020 to dramatic rollbacks by 2026, DEI has become a political and legal minefield for American retailers. And joining me today to explore what happened and what comes next is Anchita, our head of analysis and perspectives here at IADS. Anchita, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Maya. And I have to say, this is a topic that's been generating a lot of questions. I know you authored the full exclusive on this, so I'm looking forward to unpacking it with you. Let's start with the basics. What actually happened between 2020 and 2026?
It's a bit of a whiplash inducing timeline. In May 2020, George Floyd was unalived, and we saw this unprecedented wave of corporate commitments. Retailers were launching ambitious DEI programs, making public pledges, creating entire departments dedicated to racial equity. Target launched its REACH initiative, Racial Equity Action and Change. Walmart committed to a 5-year racial equity center. These weren't small gestures, they were multi-million-dollar commitments with concrete goals. But then the political winds shifted. By mid-2023, the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action in college admissions, which emboldened legal challenges to corporate diversity programs. Conservative activists started targeting retailers directly. And when Trump returned to office in January 2025, he signed executive orders directing federal agencies to terminate equity-related plans and investigate private sector DEI programs.
And that's when we started to see the corporate retreats take shape.
The retreats were swift. Target ended its DEI goals just 4 days after Trump's executive orders in early 2025. They stopped participating in diversity indices, renamed their supplier diversity team to supplier engagement, and their CEO, Brian Cornell, stepped down 7 months later. Walmart rolled back programs back in November 2024, choosing not to renew its Racial Equity Center. Conservative activist Robbie Starbuck called Walmart's rollback the biggest win yet in ending what he called wokeness in corporate America. What's striking is how quickly these billion-dollar companies abandoned years of work. The political pressure was real, but so was the fear of litigation and federal penalties for contractors.
You mentioned Target specifically, and I know there's a particularly troubling chapter involving ICE raids. Can you walk us through what happened there?
This is where Target's story becomes a cautionary tale about what I call the double bind. Target thought rolling back DEI in January 2025 would insulate them from conservative criticism, but then, in December, the Department of Homeland Security launched Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota, Target's home state, deploying 3,000 federal immigration agents. On January 8, 2026, ICE agents detained 2 Target employees at a Richfield, Minnesota store. Both were U.S. citizens. There's video footage. And Target said nothing, no public statement. Bloomberg characterized this as overcorrection, arguing that while Target may have thought silence signaled neutrality to customers and employees, it looked like cooperation or collusion. More than 300 Target employees signed an internal letter urging executives to deny ICE access without a warrant. Workers at multiple stores called out sick because they feared for their safety. And here's the stark contrast. In 2020, Target was vocal about George Floyd's murder, which happened in Minneapolis. By 2026, when U.S. citizens were being detained in their stores, they were silent.
That's a devastating shift, Maya. And it sounds like the DEI rollback didn't actually protect them from criticism. It just came from a different direction.
That's the double bind. The rollback failed to satisfy conservative critics, while alienating progressive customers and employees. Target faced boycotts from both sides. Foot traffic fell 2% in fourth quarter 2025, and this wasn't just Target's problem. Businesses nationwide were caught in ICE enforcement. Home Depot parking lots became focal points for sweeps. Hotel franchisees who declined rooms to ICE agents faced public rebukes and lost franchise agreements. In Worthington, Minnesota, where 1 in 3 residents is an immigrant, businesses reported sales declines of 50 to 70%. Latino grocery stores stayed open, but with locked doors requiring employees to visually confirm customers weren't federal agents. These communities, where immigrant entrepreneurs had revived downtowns, suddenly faced economic collapse.
So retailers are navigating this impossible landscape while also dealing with legal uncertainty. What does that look like on the ground?
The legal landscape by early 2026 was a patchwork of contradictions. In February 2025, a U.S. district judge blocked key provisions of Trump's executive orders, calling them unconstitutionally vague. But nearly a year later, a circuit court delivered a contrasting ruling that Trump could direct agencies to terminate equity related funding based on policy priorities. Then, in February 2026, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, targeted Nike, investigating whether Nike discriminated against white employees by committing to fill 30% of director positions with racial minorities. But 6 days later, the EEOC backed down from investigating 20 major law firms, acknowledging compliance was voluntary. Later that month, in Cheetah, they sued Coca-Cola over a 2-day networking event that was only for female employees. The enforcement was clearly inconsistent, authority was contested, and retailers had no clear guidance on what was legal. And then, in late April 2026, things sharpened dramatically. The U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Louisiana versus Calais effectively ended 60 years of protections against racial discrimination in elections. Meanwhile, the Trump administration's executive order barring DEI programs among federal contractors remained in force despite legal challenges, carrying significant financial penalties for noncompliance. The message to retailers was becoming unmistakable.
Given all this chaos, how are department stores actually responding? Are any holding the line?
It varies. Macy's and Nordstrom maintained DEI commitments and kept their chief diversity officers. Kohl's took a middle ground approach, rebranding the role to Chief Inclusion and Belonging Officer in March 2025, while continuing related efforts. TJ Maxx maintains that inclusion and diversity have been an important part of who they are. Costco continues supporting DEI initiatives, citing brand value alignment. Smaller retailers like Faherty and Mason-Dixie Foods publicly doubled down, framing DEI as core to company identity. But for every company holding firm, there were others quietly dismantling programs.
So, if retailers want to pursue inclusion in a way that's legally defensible and genuinely effective, what does that actually look like? What are the frameworks you found in your research?
There are 3 key frameworks that offer a path forward. First is the distinction between leveling and lifting strategies. NYU research shows that lifting, targeted programs for specific marginalized groups, faces mounting legal challenges. But leveling, removing bias from systems so processes become fairer for everyone, creates better outcomes with less legal risk. Structured interviewing, anonymized resumes, clear evaluation rubrics. As one researcher put it, the Supreme Court is never going to say it's illegal to remove unconscious bias. Second is Lily Jung's FAIR framework: fairness, access, inclusion, representation. It prioritizes outcomes over intentions, systems over self-help, coalitions over clicks. Instead of Heritage Month celebrations, FAIR demands interventions that solve problems by changing systems. And third, and this is the most powerful, is targeted universalism from UC Berkeley's Othering and Belonging Institute. You acknowledge group disparities while using that understanding to fix shared environmental problems. Jeng gives this example: a company where men dominated leadership but reported the worst well being, while women had better outcomes but were underrepresented. Rather than framing it as a gender battle, they discovered the underlying problem was a culture of overwork designed around the assumption that employees had stay at home spouses. Fixing that broken system improved outcomes for both men and women.
That's the curb cut effect in action. Designing for those with the worst experiences benefits everyone.
Yeah, you got it, Anchita. For retailers, instead of asking, how do we get more women into store management? Ask what systemic barriers prevent excellent employees from advancing, and how do those barriers disproportionately affect certain groups? Solving scheduling inflexibility or childcare support may disproportionately help women and parents while creating stronger talent pipelines for everyone.
I see, so the work of creating fair, inclusive workplaces continues. It just looks different now.
It has to. Trump declared in February 2026 that we ended DEI in America, but that glosses over a complex reality. The retailers that weathered this period most effectively shared common traits: DEI embedded in operations rather than siloed to HR, visible CEO backing, transparent communication during setbacks, and systems redesigned for their most marginalized employees. For retail facing persistent labor challenges and shifting consumer expectations, this isn't just ethically sound, it's strategically essential. The retailers that emerge from 2025 to 2026 with both credibility and capability intact will be the ones who understood that inclusion isn't a program you can roll back. It's how you build workplaces where everyone can contribute and advance based on actual merit.
Maya, this has been very insightful. Thank you for breaking down such a complex and sensitive topic.
Thanks for the thoughtful questions, Anchita. And to everyone listening, this is just the beginning of these conversations. The full exclusive with all the data, case studies, and references is available on our Substack at IADS, Exclusive Insights. You can find the link in the episode description.
For more insights like this, make sure to subscribe to IADS Retail Park wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on LinkedIn at International Association of Department Stores and visit our website at www.iads.org for additional resources.
Please be advised, this podcast features AI clone voices created with human oversight. All content is reviewed by experts for accuracy and relevance.